Okay. Thanks again. And I suppose I can see a video of myself and my slides, so I'll just begin. And I think Han just jump up and down furiously if another tech issue occurs. So a very good morning to all of you, well, at least in my time zone. I was here in the UK, and thanks for the gracious invitation and allowing me to speak remotely to you. Actually, I was just attending a food transformation through foresight task force at Oxford University. So I think this whole seminars topics that I've been diving into now and then over the early hours of the morning here have been quite pertinent. Not too much product placement, just a quick introduction that I am a futurist and strategist, and I work on different types of innovation with a focus on the food system. But clearly, the food system is linked to everything else, including the food, energy, water nexus, and sustainability. So I do some stuff beyond food as well. I also fairly recently authored book chapters on the future of Asian food systems and also the future of global water systems, including as it pertains to food security. So let me plunge into the discussion. I think one thing that I try to do as a food futurist is, I mean, in fact, it's my job, is really to have the tentacles out at great breadth and selectively at depth because I'm not a prodigy, but really plugging into the community beyond food, the foresight community, the global south, UN organizations, and so on to tap and develop perspectives on food systems, transformation, and theories of change. And I think today's discussion is quite pertinent because although the center of gravity has been on a rich country, i.e., Singapore, context of food and taste innovation, I think it's part of a very much larger piece. Here are some trends that we can talk about till the cows come home, just to contextualize what this is. And I can come back to this in the discussion. But I think a lot of this pertains to, again, the rise of the nutrition agenda, because we can't just throw volume and mass at the problem of food security in the polycrisis. Here's another exhibit, basically a recent Deliveroo study that I was commentator on, talking about different trends. The gist of it being that, as we know, people are getting more intentional about understanding the effects of what they're eating and shaping their lives through their food interventions. And then there's also a lot of sensory opportunities, including in a lockdown context, to enjoy the communal and social aspect of dining, which really is the 80-20 of any gustation experience, besides if you're eating alone as well. Okay, so there are trends, we watch them, but I think putting things together is what businesses, scientific directors, and futurists need to do. So using this simple cone analogy, we are in the now, and as we look ahead, every organization has a sense of what is probable over time concerning their mission, vision areas, and then there's a wider scope for variance. And this is very important because we put our management bandwidth, our money, our time investment, and our R&D spend based on a certain explicit or implicit theory of the future. But we know that stuff happens. The 5-10 years of time till now has been a object lesson in that, in terms of politics, economics, social factors beyond what we watch, technology beyond what we do and benchmark with, environment, certainly. We may need to pivot on that. And also legal and regulatory change that, yes, we have a bit of more influence on in a single jurisdiction, but there's the overall crawl and creep of it. And also, responsible people certainly watch known unknowns, but there have been a lot of things beyond the margins of management's attention as well. So that's what we problematize and look at when we look at the future of food, including food products and nutrition. So to turn the cone analogy, it's like really using scenarios and other methods to look at different flavors of what the future could taste like. So we are not so surprised. And so we have more warning and agency to influence towards a more preferred outcome. So to the polycrisis, we knew we had this issue. And some time ago, the first coming of Trump, things were rattled, including 30 by 30 by COVID, and also the long economic and social crises that it has triggered. And of course, driving with conflicts ongoing that have also disrupted food security, but also given more policy impetus towards food security resilience. And of course, we have the second coming as well. And the gist of it, like it or hate it, is we may be tending towards maybe moderate deglobalization, a more divided world. It's just whether it will be a bit more rules based or more disorderly on things like tariffs that could affect the economics of where we source our food and our food sovereignty agendas at local, national, regional levels and among friends in the era of friendshoring. So that's very much the context. We thought we had a plan at Paris. Of course, COP29 avoided being a total farce, but I think we are certainly not on track for this. And the CG is moving towards adaptation, including for the food system. How do we harden the food system, climate smart agriculture, mindful that only a small fraction is in the high tech, truly insulated mode? So how do we do broad acre and also agroforestry in a way that's resilient? So welcome, my friends, to the Polycrisis, something that affects us all, goes beyond food, and certainly turns back into food. And so some of the flavors of the Polycrisis, one would be mass people movements, involuntary or voluntary, legal or most of the time not so legal. And in fact, as we know, this can swing elections. Migration is a big issue around the world. And this also breeds, it can be due to food insecurity, it can even breed more food insecurity and socio-economic and geopolitical instability, the Arab Spring being a fairly recent episode of that. And on the food side, the Polycrisis, just to paint in broad brush, it certainly does not help the sustainable development agenda, including in terms of WASH, in terms of food safety, especially across the global south. And also it doesn't help, in things like AMR or things like plastic pollution. It certainly doesn't help in terms of animal health, plant health, and One Health that could actually severely disrupt us and shift the conversation from what we've mostly been talking about today. It also doesn't help in terms of food crime, transborder crime in food, adulteration, and so on. And so all this uncertainty, one key axis we can look at, and again, it pertains to COP29 and the discontents and the different interests, is are we playing for a world where we really double down on technology? And we certainly need to. And I think I applaud A-Star and Monel for doing that, or other people pushing to say that regardless of the tech front, we just need to really retrench in terms of our different sectors and pursue a degrowth policy. Because we can't wait for the technology to deliver all the promised dividends of a shrinking human carbon footprint to let the rest of the earth rebound and recover. So that will be one of the tensions in terms of aspirations. So great, profound, tremendous uncertainty in food and beyond. And of course, this is the cliche you can put on a coffee mug for that. So that's setting the scene for my discussion of how we need to look at personalized nutrition, not just as something cool, fun, and self-actualizing, but in not so good scenarios that are macro beyond the food system's agency. This may be the lifeline between, life and death, or just surviving and doing a bit better, or even having some pockets of food security and nutrition in a generally grim landscape. First, I think you guys are more scientific than me in the room. I'm a social scientist by background. You would know that the omic sciences are advancing. You would know that the food has a tremendous and broad effect, not just on preventive health, but on things like mood, energy level, cognition, different types of vocational performance, mental health, links to different disorders or lack thereof, early childhood, the whole shebang. So there's really a profound range of things that we can do with better nutrition that in the end needs to be personalized, not just to the genome, but to the omics of each individual's population, environment, lifestyle, and the individual things like their gut microbiome. So the state of the sector right now, I would say, is quite nascent. I think there are a lot of players, including, as I understand it, SIFB, that are looking into different aspects of how to personalize nutrition more in terms of reading. Certain individuals or certain populations, as you get the population smaller, it trends towards the individual. And then from there, of course, you can write in real time for someone, not just a one-off based on their cheek swab, but in the future, even on a real-time basis, looking in your Outlook calendar, anticipating what you'll be feeling, what your community will be experiencing in terms of weather, adversity, metabolic constraints, and so on, and really optimizing your performance across that very broad model. But things are still quite nascent. And I won't put a bet on how far and how fast we can go, but we'll get there in terms of reading and also in terms of the solutioning, in terms of writing in different formats that have been the crux of today's discussion. And I would suggest to you as a provocation that one parameter we can work towards is a sort of nutritional nirvana. All along, we've been dealing with the gravity of how what you eat comes back to haunt you in NCD and so on. Can we imagine, and is this a utopia, a dystopian ideal, a situation where what we eat and the nutritive quality of what we eat and the subjective personal gustation experience are totally independent variables. So there are no trade-offs. Of course, we've still got to tweak, manage, and concoct both, but we can realize a total win-win. Can we get there for the individual? But then I pose the question for the population. Hell yes, if you're Elon Musk, you've got the budget, you can be there even today. But can we carry everyone, shift the bell curve for everyone in a certain population in the right direction? And also, let's talk about the co-benefits of that speak to the polycrisis. All right, so a simple mandala that some of you have seen my talks, have seen before. I think with COVID, this really brought front and center how food sourcing can't be just from the blue egg of the whole world and globalization. Traffic broke down, so we've got, and so we started to think of the mosaic of how can I manage and even produce resources at the household level, the red dot, at the neighborhood level on a non-economic basis, maybe communally with the neighbors in yellow, and then what places like Singapore are focusing on, more food in the urban, peri-urban space, and then for those who have a domestic area and countryside of then that's the blue, and then the most interesting one, back to my comment on friendshoring, is the purple zone of where it's also based on diplomatic ties as much as agronomic sense in terms of where you want your critical food and ingredient and fertilizer value chains as well to be, and energy. And so coming to the city, there's so many technologies. I won't place my bet on any one, but I'm certainly looking at PF, for instance, and small things, as they say in Singapore, like I'm looking also at mycelium, for instance, as some paths towards getting there. And FAO, others look a lot at the food chat, city region food systems, and really how self-sustaining at each rung can we be. And again, to situate it in Singapore, I look forward to the Singapore Johor Special Economic Zones imminent announcement. So this thing about nearshoring as well, collaboration that gives different parties more options across sovereign borders. And what are some of the paths here, including towards this PN for all? I think advanced food manufacturing, lots of different things. Here are just some examples of that. So we need to think about that, a whole superstructure of the near future as well. And also going full circular, going beyond just the boundaries of food to energy, water, and even building materials as well to achieve more circularity and low carbon. And there's a lot of imaginaries here, including about different types of zonal or general climate engineering, another interesting cul-de-sac we can go down. So in the interest of time, yes? Sorry, did someone say something?
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. I was just wondering if it's possible if you could just give us your final point. We're running
Certainly.
a little bit low on time. That'd be great. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, just give me about 3 more minutes. Thank you. So,
can you? We have 3 more minutes. we're ending the session here at 4, and we have a panel has to do. So if you're able to wrap it up in the next minute, that'd be great.
All right, certainly. Yep. Hello? Okay. So let me zoom in. Okay, so basically, if we have personalized nutrition for all, the key benefit here, obviously there'll be benefits for the individual, But from city metabolism, including to have as frugal, as waste not food footprint as possible, we can also get there and meet our carbon obligations, as well as our food and nutrition optimization. And of course, there's lots of challenges to do that, because food, unlike water, is very diverse, and there's a lot of considerations, including ritual considerations, personal preferences to get there. Halal being one very key one, as the Muslim demographic globally increases, for example. And of course, cities are also very diverse, and the infrastructure, a lot of times, is a brownfield infrastructure that we have to adapt. If we look at that thing from reading into writing and the last mile of personalization, you can think of different modes to do that, including you want to check in at your neighborhood convenience store. Would they be white goods devices at home, for instance? And of course, we
Thank
have a
you.
lot of enablers that I think have been discussed, like additive manufacturing, as well, and of course, advances in the omic sciences. And so the last point I'll make is that I hope I've sketched out to you the potential of PN for all in urban context, and how this meets the polycrisis in terms of dealing with environmental ravages and possible impact on food flows that are global as well. It comes down to shaping individual preference, but the key thing is that government must stand up, not just on the R&D front, but in public policy, to articulate a vision of how we can reach this. And I'm involved in working with certain governments, not Singapore, on this. So
Great.
thank you very
Thank you.
much. Sorry for the disruptions and the
No
delay.
problem.
And
Thank you,
thank
Louis.
you for, yeah.